Hello and a warm welcome to every one of you. I appreciate you continuing to come to this reflective dialectic. And I also appreciate the fact that you want to use the provocations and propaganda within identity politics and the value of life to kind of protect yourself as communicator, to support your wellness. Because, as you know, one bad word and you will be executed on social media. For those viewers that float on social media, I just want to say my name is Philip, and I will present these sessions of a reflective dialectic. And today is a theoretical session, and some of the other sessions are practical sessions. So if you go onto the internet, YouTube or somewhere, just check that you do both. As I alluded to, these sessions provide a clear chart to navigate through stormy conditions created by identity politics of being, sex, and death. Now, in the first session, I introduced you, those of you who didn't know it, to the dialectic, which is used, the modernist dialectic, or paradigm dialectic, whichever you want to call it, which is very much formalized within academia. And I said to you that it was completely dysfunctional. And then I spent 2 more sessions trying to make it slightly more functional. Remember we said there's a thesis and an antithesis, and they don't talk to each other. So in the next 2 sessions I tried to get them to talk together. And today we're going to introduce a different way of looking at it, which is more natural, and I'll get to that in a moment. I think that I first have to reintroduce the dialectic, or paradigm dialectic, because there seems to still be some confusion about it. There's also some confusion, which I picked up in the practical sessions, of understanding of modernism. Now, yes, let me try and do it in a different way this time. Last time I was very ordered, trying to stick to the academic perception. Today I'm just going to do it the way it is. Now, to start off, what we had is let's call it ancient narratives. Ancient narratives, spiritual narratives, which was all over the world, and the different tribes and different cultures, they weren't cultures at the time that much, different narratives. And it came with relics, and it came with rights, and it came with rules. And the whole idea was to save the tribe, keep it from starvation and let it grow. So that was it. And we now call it pre-modernism. But it's not really. Okay, this is the ancient spiritual stuff. Then came along the Greeks. What we know of depends on, the writings, which we can see what they did at the time, when it was still only verbal communication. We we don't know much about that. So, when came the Greeks? Let's talk about Aristotle, Socrates, Plato, anyone else? Okay, what did they do? They said, we must move to a rational logic. Rational logic. Sorry for the noise. Now, we must go away from our irrationality, from our emotions, and we must go towards rationality. The church picked up on that, the Christian church, on some part of it, and they created their narrative around that. Now, then came what we call the Enlightenment. I didn't pass writing at school. Now, the Enlightenment was actually when the Western people broke the power of the church to some extent, and the oppression from the church, and even the killings from the church, and started to see the rational logic. Because it's not the rational logic from the Greeks that the church brought down. They brought the irrational part of it. Remember, I explained that. Now, what happened is while the church was oppressing the people in Europe, the Muslims took over the rational logic. They took over the mathematics, especially the mathematics, and reintroduced it in Spain to the Western people. And that's what sparked the Enlightenment. Now, just if you read some of the stuff, you will see this little blob, and then this is a wave function of an earthquake. Here's a little P. This one, which you almost don't see, tells you everything about that earthquake. Distance, strength, place where it happened, if you have more than one seismometer. So this was the Muslims introducing some of the rational logic to the West again. But it can also be seen as the Greeks in themselves. Remember, this was 2500 BC, if I remember correctly. And this big surface waves, which is the disruptive ones, that's the ones which you now find in postmodernism or philosophical text as Enlightenment. It's not. It was here. So please be careful what you see and what it means. It's never the same thing, unfortunately. Now, after explaining Enlightenment to some extent, then from this Enlightenment came technological and scientific advancement, as well as how can I call it, government systems. democratic government systems. Democratic. Which people fought for. Blood was spent on this. A lot of blood. We tried to get rid of the autocrats. Then, after that came let me not say after that, it actually relates to something in between here. The way of interpretation. What was interpreted? What was interpreted was, what did these ancient peoples do? What did the Greeks wrote about? What was needed for the Bible? What of all the old Jewish texts and what Jesus said needed to go into the Bible? So it was selected, and the old texts were interpreted, and then after the Bible got its form, people started to interpret the Bible. So that's what that was all about. And at some stage, I started looking at different cultures. After the explorers found all the other people in different continents, I started to explore their cultures. And then, I'm not sure when, because came a postmodernist. This is now seen as modern, and this as well. And this is all of a sudden postmodernism. And then came what we can call constructivism. Or critical social texts. Now, it's not only text. But what happened? Why am I uncertain what's happening here? Well, if you listen to some, I would say that around about 1886, 1885, people in artwork started to reject realism, because realism is part of this. And remember, this is now 1886, but others will tell you when Mills wrote that book and described the scientific method, that was when modernism was actually defined. And that was in 1843. So I'm working with like 1850, around 1850. So these people started to call themselves postmodernists, but then they defined postmodernism as something which is uncertain, something which it's complex, it cannot be really defined. It's never kind of determinable. And they said all science and technology was about things can be determined perfectly. Now, if nothing can be determined, as I say, That means you switch on your TV and it will come on or it won't come on, and you won't have any idea when it will do and when it won't. Now, what happens is everybody started to forget about this. Remember we spoke about that? And a pure philosophical idea of postmodernism say this is not postmodernism, because they interpret what's real, and this is not postmodernism because Marx had a theory for his socialist communist government, and because there's a theory, it can't be postmodernism. So that's the story. What do you see here? All I see is one big mess. And how can you use a mess to create order or create an understanding? It's actually a form of nihilism which sets in. And humans aren't made, no organism was made to work like that or evolved to work like that. So what are we going to have today? We're going to get rid of all this. We can't. We tried to make it work. We might have made it work. As you can see, nobody really knows. All the people who do know really don't know what's happening with this structure. But we did get some value from it, or tried to. So what am I proposing today, which is very, very different? Well, not that much, but I'm saying what we're going to do today is we're going to look at a natural system. So what we have is well, that's at the wrong place. But it matters because right, we've got kind of a life here. What's happening? This is we are born, and like all organisms, we develop. And remember, you'll know that Homo sapiens, the theory is, started in Africa, moved and moved and moved right down, and actually also moved to Antarctica, but with high sea levels and rising conditions, that remains to be developed. Our knowledge about it. You can put Australia there. Right. So what I'm saying is every organism developed to make the best for the species, so that the species can survive and thrive, including humans. So the first thing I will have is organisms evolved. The second thing I will have is the development of a brain, the human versus Homo sapiens. How our brain developed In the past, I'm not sure, it's about 200,000 years, and in the past 30,000 years our brain shrunk a little. Couldn't use all that resources, and maybe nature made a mistake giving us a big brain, because we still don't know how to use it. So this is natural. Then I have a second one. So it's all on earth. Then I have psychosocial. What people think and the ideas they develop. And let's put it around here. This one is supernatural. Our relationships to the gods. That's what it is. And all the metaphysics. And the second one is our stories. That's an I. Our stories between ourselves of us and our governments, and so they work with each other, and they really don't like to get involved with what a human person would experience: gravity, age, old age. Certain things can't happen because there are rules in the universe, in this universe. These stories don't have to have that. They can today decide the earth is flat, and it will be flat. For example. And then I say, you have something here. Oh dear. Let's give it like a antenna. And this is a reflective dialectic. Remember, we did that. And this looks at all of us and try and make it ethical, make it structured. So this is what I'm introducing in the place of the paradigm dialectic we had. So I'd like to give you some information on it, but I'm not going to discuss it fully. We will do that later on. Actually, you'll see it in your notes, so I don't have to do it. Not now. Okay, I must switch on the computer, apparently. He died on me. Hope you haven't seen my password. Right. What do we have? We have this origin of knowledge system. So it's all about the origins. At some stage we will talk about how humans colonized, actually Homo sapiens colonized the earth, or most of the continents, from Homo erectus, which was already there. And when the explorers from the west started to find all the other peoples, we were actually cousins. Yeah, we weren't that much different. But we'll get there, hopefully, at some stage. So, origins of knowledge. It's still a dialectic. It's still a dialectic. But it subscribes to the developmental rather than mentally developed reality perspectives. You know, the old postmodernism ideas. And it subscribes to a fundamental unity, not a constructed duality. That was the problem we had. So we're still using the dialectic, but we're subscribing to a fundamental unity, which means it's much easier to get to a synthesis. And it subscribes to a current view of scientific knowledge, a 2020, 2024 view of it, not an 1850 idea. And then it rejects the idea of true postmodernisms, that nothing is deterministic and nothing is can be simplified, and everything is complex and nothing is certain. We just don't subscribe to that idea. You will find that they say determinism the death bell of it was rung by quantum mechanics. Actually, no. It was rung by a guy by the name of Einstein when he developed relativism. You remember where E equals mc squared? This guy. Right. But something is still very deterministic. If you play billiards, the ball doesn't go anywhere. It depends on where you hit it, and it depends on a few factors. We can't always control all factors, otherwise we get the black ball in every time. So there's a certainty-uncertainty dynamic which we must always appreciate. And then one thing is this external reality, internal reality. Where's the difference? It's not the body, it's not the senses. Internal reality is only our thinking. Much of a body is still external reality to our thinking. My toe is very sore. It's an external factor from my thinking. My thinking that my toe is sore, that's internal. Now, does it make any sense? I don't know. Right, I've done that. I've said that this system is inclusive of all life forms. It's not a human-made thing, right? But it's also Homo sapien perspectives around here. And the fact that we can reflect on it is also Homo sapien to a large extent, I think. You know that trees talk to each other? You know that mother trees help their siblings using mushrooms to do it? So I'm never sure where our reflections and our thinking is better. But we must say what reality is in the system. Reality is expected to include all physical states of our universe, from micro to macro, from matter to force fields, plus all mental output states, from factual to fictional. Factual and fictional. We've got them there. This is not deterministic. Is it fact or fiction? Well, I'm not sure. It works pretty well to a certain extent, which makes it fact. But actually, there's a lot of research that now shows it's just another fiction. But it helped us a lot. Right. And then what I've said, and The Origins of Knowledge framework has the thesis that support objective reality and the antithesis that support our subjective irrational reality. It's a qualitative quantitative difference to some extent. And it demands subjectship as political status in communist countries, where in Western democracies we've got citizenship. Right. It does not support projective knowledge at all. And it entangles the thesis and antithesis, very much like Max Weber said, ethical utilitarianism, the usefulness of things. So that entanglement is there, and the angles of incidence are ecological development, psychosocial transformation performance, which is the supernatural and the psychosocial, and then the reflective ideas around it. So that's where we are. There's a lot of in-between stuff describing everything and how the reflective idea works, but we had that in the previous time. It's still the logos, pathos and ethos idea that still remains. So for continued practice, I want you to go and familiarize yourself as soon as you get the data with this paradigm, the origins dialectic, I may call it, and how we're going to reflect on it. Familiarize yourself with it. But the practice sessions, as far as that's concerned, we didn't finish the last time, and I made one mistake as well. I said that, what was the mistake? I can't remember. But when I remember, I will tell you. It was Thor. It was about Thor, where I said that Thor was a Greek. He was not. He's from the north, far north, Nordic countries, from those it's not here anymore, from those religions. So I know we haven't finished, but I want you, for the next practical session, if we can get to it, to go and look at Ibram X. Kendi. He's from Boston and he University Center, and he's in anti-racist research. I want you to go and look what he said about CRT. And in the next section, I'm going to do the proximate horizon thinking structure, something I've referred to a couple of times. And thank you for your time, attention, and curiosity.